Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 66 of the All in Football Fantasy Premier League Show podcast. I am your host, the self-proclaimed FPL guru, and joining me today are Scott Williams and our league champion, Barry Stokes. Barry, love the crown. How are you?
I'm very good. Obviously, this stress is relieved, so that's why I got discharged on Monday from the hospital. I was in there for stress. Obviously, I wasn't. I was in there for another reason, but it felt like I was in there for stress. Put it that way. But yeah, that stress is over, so yeah, I can relax now and wear my crowning pride.
Congratulations, Barry. We'll talk a lot more about your season and the season of everyone else on today's season review podcast. And Scott, how are you?
Ticking over, mate.
Yeah, you're right. I think you'll enjoy this pod. There's plenty on it, and it's gonna be good. So don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and to where you get podcast from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is, so you'll get the alerts when these go live, and follow us on our social media platforms. All in Football Pod, All in Football P, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We have got a jam-packed show today. I've got hopefully three special guests coming on. And that includes our cup champion, Len Deakin, and hopefully a couple of other special guests.
This is going to be a long podcast of Len's coming on, isn't it?
Well, I've told him he's got 10 minutes.
Right.
The problem is he definitely have had a glass of wine as well. Because they're an hour ahead, aren't they? As well in France, where he is. So, yes. But let's quickly do the wrap-up. Game week 38. So Barry Stokes claimed the league title with 50 points. Geoff Belcher into second, winning the league by 4 points at the end of Barry. 51 points for Geoff. David Byrne, disappointing last game week of the season, but coming home in a really, really respectable third place. Well done, Dave, 25 points. Gavin Webb and Heather Howcroft rounding out the top five. The manager of the week. I want to shout out to DC with 66. Also want to shout out Callum Burnett with 66. And Judith Williams with 65. Well done, Judith. But don't get me wrong. I'm going to say it, so I'll never listen to this. Really disappointingly, Chris Clegg was his last game of the season, and he vice captained Kane against his own club, Leeds, and went to watch them get relegated. Unfortunately for all Leeds fans, and 32 points for Kane. Captain Haaland was on his bench, never came on. He had Rodrigo and Harrison. Harrison obviously scored. Saka, Ødegaard, Eze, me, Botman, Castagna, Trippier, and Edison in a very low scoring last game week of the season. We'll talk about the cup in a bit, but how are you feeling, Barry? Let's start with that. All been building to this cup champ last year, great second half of the season, probably one of the best, and then you've smashed it this year. What 18 months?
Well, to be honest, I'm knackered. I am physically and mentally knackered. Actually, trying to grind out some differentials and trying to claw back some points that obviously I clawed back with my Wilson captain. That was a unbelievable shout from myself, because I was thinking, should I play it safe with Isaac and get him in? And I thought, no, I'm going to have someone different. So obviously I picked Wilson and captained him, and obviously he set the world alight. And obviously thanks to Leeds for giving two penalties away. But it's how it is. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm absolutely overjoyed, to be honest. I thought I was going to bottle under pressure and do an Arsenal, but I've actually held strong. I thought I made some poor choices in my last game week transfers. I put Wan-Bissaka in, didn't even play. I put Ødegaard in. Didn't really do much, but I was thinking of putting Trossard in and Kivor for Arsenal, and I thought, no, I'm not putting them two in. I put Wan-Bissaka and Ødegaard, because Trossard had a flag on him, and I was unsure he was going to start, especially if I had Saka as well, and he had a flag on. I thought, I don't want too many flags, because to be honest, I looked at my team and I thought, I've got that many flags. I thought I was landing a plane. He was even saying to me, I think you should do a -4. Well, it's a good job I didn't want it. So it's one of them. I'm over the moon, and to be fair, it was nail biting stuff and twitchy bum time, to be fair. So I've overcome that. So yeah,
I would just like to say, 15:43 on Sunday. I'll be proper pissed off if Wan-Bissaka is on the bench. That's it. Season over. I've got Shah and Trippier, benched AWB, Shaw and Stones. Oh, well, always next year. So you had full faith. You got the moaning in really early there, didn't
you? Yeah, massively.
It was,
but yeah, it was one of them.
You're always pessimistic in those spots, aren't you? But let me just again, so everybody knows, we're going to do a podcast in a couple of weeks, which is going to be based fully on the football side of things. Mostly because we want to. You don't have to listen to it, anybody, but I'm just going to love recording it and talking to you guys about the football. So if anyone wants to give that a listen, that'll be great. But this is going to be incredibly heavily FPL based. This pod, and I've got some statistics, Barry, about your season. The second chance league. So your final ranking was 35,700. That was quite clearly the best out of everybody else. I mean, Geoff was 82k, but pretty much everybody else was outside of the top 100k. You were only beat by one person in the second chance league, actually. That was me.
Yeah, I'm going to say you had a very good back end of season. To be honest,
if the season started game week 17, I'd have won the league. But it doesn't. That's such a bad first start.
If it ended on 17, you'd have lost the league.
If I'd have ended on 16, I think I'd have never done another podcast, mate. I was so bad. But I've got a few of my own stats in a bit, which show how terrible I was to how good the second half was. Your captaincy points. So you had a 29 out of 37. Now these are at 37 because of the blank game week for the Queen's passing. So you got 29 out of 37 correct captains, 27% correct in terms of it took 27% of your points came from your captain. Sorry, and that was where you were ahead of Geoff. But Dave Byrne got more points than you from his captain. He got 688, and he was right 30 times. So he was right one more time. Gav got exactly the same amount of points from his captain as you. It was interesting to see that that wasn't where your edge really was over Dave and Gav, but over Geoff it massively was. You got 72 points more from your captain than Geoff did over the season. I mean that's massive. It's a massive difference. Like that's it's made all the changes. Did you have a strategy with your captain this year that was any different to before, or?
I think if Haaland wasn't playing, I think that was the only time where you were sweating a potential captain.
You say that, just to interject on that. You captained him 21 times out of 37 game weeks. So you did captain somebody else 16 times, which is a third of the season. So you didn't captain him every time he played. I thought that'd be a point, and everyone was similar across the board in that.
Yeah, because I think some double game weeks looked quite promising, like the Rashford triple captain, and then obviously the Wilson double game week captain. I think that obviously made me win the league, to be honest. But yeah, I looked at players in form and who they were playing, and obviously how that team was, because looking at, obviously, as Scott mentioned about the difficulty ratings, I think some of them were a bit obscure because Chelsea wasn't as good as they were this season, and you could think, well, you're gonna score against them, and they're gonna. So it's like looking how bad they was in form. So I was going obviously on form as well as the in-form players for the teams and obviously like the players. So that was basically the reasoning for most of my captaincies was that really.
Your chip usage again. So I'll get into this a little bit more with when other people are on the podcast, but that's where Dave Byrne really dropped off. It was a moment where from his free hit he was only 17 points above the average. You were 24. From his triple captain, he was only 21 above the average. You were 40, and bench boost. To be fair, he was 56 and you were 37, but the triple captain was a big difference. And your game week 16 through 19 was your big period of the season where you really, really gathered momentum. So game week 16 to 19, you went from 1.08 million to 275k. So a really, really good run from 1.08 million to 275k. So 16 to 19 that was. And then after that, pretty up and down. But then from game week 22 to game week 25, you went from 285k to 88k. So 2 really great periods in the season for you. If your daughter lets you, hello Gracie D.
Yeah.
What happened? You said that you could do that. Are you you say that. Go on. Sorry for everyone who's listening on the podcast.
Go on, sorry.
Baz's daughter's popped on.
Yeah,
eating an apple.
I'm juggling with my daughter. It's half to a minute.
But a couple of really important periods of the season where you gained massive rank, 1 million to 275k. You had a couple of really good game weeks as well. Game week 18 in particular. Do you remember these game weeks? Is there anything that really stood out to you in these weeks that were decisions that you made?
I think it was round the wild card, wasn't it? Was it round 22? Was it? I think I played my wild card.
You played your wild card in 9 and 28. Game week 9 and game week 28. So
okay.
So it was the World Cup wild card. You did really well after that, 16 to 19. Then it was game week 22. When you played your triple captain, you had a really good week this week, and that seemed to make a huge difference. Look at the amount of flags you've got. You love flags, don't you? And then 93 points in game week 23 when you were one of the only people I think went Mahrez, and then you had Shaw as well as Rashford and everything else within it. Was there any? Because these were the big weeks that propelled you, because you got to 88k by game week 25 and you finished on 69k.
Yeah,
so
it was all the forward planning. I think the only time where it kind of went a bit wrong, if you go back onto my stats where it was throughout the game weeks, and obviously the red and green arrows, if you go back on that, Alex, I think when Almiron got injured and then a few others got injured, I was kind of like just doing the spur of the moment transfer, and I wasn't really forward thinking because I had other fires to put out. So that was the bit where I was kind of worrying a bit, and that's where I think I lost my momentum, but then I managed to generate it back. I think it was probably around the game week 33 where I had a few of these red arrows. I was kind of fighting fires with a few injuries that obviously spurred upon me. But then obviously after that, I put them out or just left them on the bench. Like, for example, like Martinelli and Moreno, I just left them on the bench. And then obviously transferred them in game week 38 for 2 awful picks, shall I say. But yeah, I think...
Well, game week 33, to give that context for everyone who's listening on the podcast, Baz's team had players that didn't play in the last game week. 7 out of his 15 selections were injured, basically, or bar Saka, I should say. 6 out of his 15 selections were injured. So it was, you had a lot of changes you had to make from 33 through 37 minutes with the red arrows. I'm just going to admit Len to the waiting room, and we'll get him in to discuss his cup run, and we'll come back to you, Barry. That's for sure. But I need to get our second ever champion on of the All in Football podcast.
It looks a bit technically.
I'll bring it nearer to you.
I like that, Len. You're on. You're on, Len. You're live.
Yay!
Here he is.
Fantastic.
Bring it nearer.
Thanks for the invite, Alex, onto your excellent podcast. Brilliant. What can you say? This league of yours, All In, is absolutely amazing. You've got like tons of great managers in depth. It's fantastic. Curl Up and Dyer, what a great name.
Yeah.
No place I'd rather be. What a fantastic fun. Kids, Genie, ASFC, Out for the Mount. That's brilliant. I love that one. Yeah. They're just great names. And what an incredibly close finish it was. Wow, it's just amazing. Fantastic. And you've got Stranger Mings and USA and Goat and Umpet FC. I just love it.
It's a cracking league, and do you know what I really like about it as well? There's pretty much all of us are within it and mates. There's a couple of people who've logged in from different places, but it's so competitive and it's great. This is the reason I love doing the podcast is all the people that are on it, because it's a little community, and I've just really enjoyed it. So thank you so much, Len, for coming on.
Oh, no, you're welcome. Right, I've got
You've got to be the oldest.
I
You've
am.
got to be the oldest.
Yeah, I mean, you're lucky. I've still got some brain cells here. But
is that why you've got Jackie with you, Len?
yeah,
I'm sitting next door.
she's
that's
winding
all.
me up at the back.
Yeah, just interject here. And I do it with Dan and Jen and Len, the other one.
Hey, this isn't your
No,
podcast.
I come last because I don't choose scum or Chelsea players.
Well, and that's it's been
I
a
might
problem.
lose every time, but I have the moral high ground.
Yeah.
It's been a problem this season if you haven't had Rashford, and that's for sure. Especially when he went through his period of time, they did really well. Len, right, I've got 10 minutes, Len, and I've been told by Dan. I've got to make sure I keep you to time. That's what he told me.
I've got a quick apology to make to Jen and Dan. Obviously, they've been. Each of them have thrashed me by hundreds of points, so I'm really sorry.
You should be really sorry about the fact that they thrashed you by hundreds of points, but you've won the cup.
I know.
So
it feels like my whole life's been changed. It's been leading towards this. It's like it's my 15 minutes Andy Warhol moment.
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah,
10 minutes. Well, I've got to say, Len, by the way, you're in great company, because the person who won the cup last year then won the league the next year, and he sat right here, and it's Barry Stokes. So he won the cup last year, then the next year he won the whole damn league.
Legend, that's fantastic. My first season, I was 3,287,641st, right? And I thought, well, that's not bad. I mean, there's 8 billion people on this planet.
It isn't bad. But you were 2.95 mil this year, so that's an improvement. It's a step forward.
Yeah, it's all right. All right. It's just destiny, this, Alex. It's destiny.
It's definitely destiny, Len. And you didn't get a bye in the first round either. And a lot of people got a bye in game week 33, but you had to beat Michael Hughes, and you only got through that by 5 points. Then you were against Umper FC.
Yeah, tell me about it.
117 points you got that week. That's one of your top scores of the season.
It's absurd. It's years of utter heartache, dedication, tears,
Well, you beat Adrian Chippendale in game week 36. He was last year's champion of the whole thing. Beat Martin Wheel, who's, I think his overall rank between all of us was about 5th out of all the 40 managers in there over a period of time. I will look at that a little bit later on. Yeah, and Steve Cousins was on a great run. How did you?
Look, I'm just waiting for a call from Rads.
Let him.
Honestly,
do you want to speak to Rads?
Well, they've had Mad Marsh and his penis tactics. They've had Gentle Grassy and his mild ways. I'm sorry, Nick Sands, Dolly mixture, scattergun. It's how about Lucky Lens? See where the names land.
Well, that's your team name for next year. That's done. Lucky Lens, it's on there. That's locked in for your team name for next year.
That's it then. Toss a coin.
Can I ask a genuine question?
All right.
Did you actually when the cup started? Was it a conscious effort for you to actually think, "Oh, I'd really like to win this," or did you? And genuinely, did you just go, "Oh crap, I'm in a cup," and then realize where you got to?
Dan told me I was in the semi-final.
I love that. Didn't even notice until game week 37, and I'm glad you found out, because beating Martin must have felt very sweet.
It was all aware. You know what I mean? I even asked Dan for advice, and this is what did it. This was the crunch. I shouldn't do it really, but I mean, a bribe. You could argue like I bribed some of them, or like. or some of them must have been on having a few drinks beforehand, and maybe, I think some of them just felt sorry for me, which is why I got through. Anyway, I asked Dan for some serious advice, and he said, "Just get more points, mate."
sounds like a damn thing to say. So a couple of quick fire ones for you. You're quite new to FPL, recently, in terms of recent years. You've been playing a little bit more seriously within our league. What lessons have you learned this season that you're going to take into next that's going to make you, as Dan would say, get more points, mate?
Lessons there. Well, you could say study hard, all the forms and all that, or or a drink when you're choosing your team,
It's a
maybe.
family
Or
show.
oh yes, Fanta. I'm sorry. Or
Drink
my favourite
Coca-Cola
method-
or Fanta, of course. Water, maybe.
Yeah, well, of course. My favourite
Keep
method is
hydrated.
get a list of all the team, all the players, and spread them out, and then get a blindfold and a key. I just stab away.
That's how Scott picks his captain every week, I think.
That's his differential, eh?
That's his differential. It is his differential, actually. We've got the differential league. We'll touch on later on. Who was your favourite player of the? Who was your favourite player of the season? Who was your FPL wise or generally?
I think it's got to be Ailing. He's a sort of latter day Terry Cooper. Like he's got that passion and he's got some skill. He's scored some thunderous goals and he's got calamitous sort of celebrations. And he's hardworking. He's a nice chap, and I just like him a lot.
And who was your biggest troll of the season? What player did you have in your fantasy team, or that you didn't get you any points? You were really disappointed by having, and you were like, "What waste of time?"
Oh right, I didn't know what a troll was. So,
well, do you know what? What answer did you write down for that question anyway? That's why I'm intrigued now. How you interpreted that question?
Well, my answer was, can you give me your examples of a troll?
Oh, well, Scott, are you there, Scott? Can you
James Madison.
James Madison. Now, he's absolutely your troll of the season, and as everyone else's. A player that should do really, really well and offers loads of promise. You've always put in your fantasy team, then doesn't deliver for you when he comes in.
Yeah, he'll look really good on the pitch. He'll look great, but then just nothing will happen.
Vardy.
Yeah,
Vardy this season. Yep.
Well, yeah, because Madison kept putting him on the plate, and then Vardy was,
That's actually quite a good shout, actually. So go on, Len.
Well, I was just wondering, when's the prize pack 7-day unlimited, freebies arrive on the bag and everything?
I've already had Scott tapping me up for a T-shirt, and I haven't got any. You know what? If you want to go to watch Leeds in the chat, I'm not going to know. That's too far. Let's get. I'll message FPL Tower, see if I can get something sent to the post.
Tell you what, I'll settle for a mural.
Oh, I like that. Have you lifting a trophy? That sounds like a good. We can have that on the wall in France.
Yeah.
Do you have? I mean, we've established now you didn't know you were in a cup till to the semi-final anyway, which is
right.
which is funny, which I like. Did you have any tactics in the final other than just pick your team and hope?
Well, at 31st in the league, generally, I've not got any blinding insights. You'd have to ask the clever ones there. I was just lucky. I suppose I had my go-to players, Salah and Haaland, but then everybody did, so they cancelled each other out, really, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a really difficult season to catch up when you were behind because there weren't that many options to go for, and everyone seemed to always have them. Like the ones that were.
I do have a piece of advice though.
Do it. This is what we'll finish on. Like this is your last bit. We've got to go.
When you want to change your team because you're sick of them and they're not doing anything, and you've got a free hit or a wild card, and you change the whole squad, don't forget to press free hit or wild card like I did.
I did. You took 80 points in hits this season, and weren't 30 of them in 1 week because you pressed the wrong button. It was.
Why my minus 24?
Yeah, you had your minus 24 last season, Baz, didn't you? Well, I think that's solid advice. Well, Len, thank you so much for taking the time to come on.
Thank you, and all the best to you and to Georgie and Roman and Quinn. Hope everyone's really good in your family, and it's great to see you all. And you're always welcome over here. By the way, it's 28 degrees.
Bloody lovely, and thank you very much. And you know what? I'll be around. I'll be over. I might leave the kids. Might leave the kids behind. But thanks, Len. And thank you, Jackie, as well.
See ya. Bye.
See you soon. Bye. Thank you.
Oh.
Well, that was great. And you know what? I think it went really smoothly.
Yep, 10 minutes clock.
Yeah, it was bang on 10 minutes. Oh, that was good. I like that he didn't pay any attention until the semi-finals. I thought that was fantastic. And it just shows that sometimes, just by picking your team normally, you don't need to even think about the person against that you might get through. A little bit different to you last season, Baz.
Yeah, I'm going to say I was sweating the cup, to be fair, and by the sounds of Lenny, it was just like, yeah, I'll just crack on and pick my team. If I win, I win. It's like the laissez-faire. Whereas me, I was like proper like anxious. I was nervous. I was like, come on, I'm going to win the cup. I have to win something. Yeah. But yeah, it was good insight.
It was, and a man who just definitely plays it for fun. That's for sure, which is always nice to hear. Let's touch on your team for a bit, Scott, with what we've talked about so far. If that's all right, are you ready for the inquest into your team? A couple of things. So your team this season in terms of captaincy points, once again, as of last season, again, you got 638 points in for your captaincy. Now, don't get me wrong, Baz got more with 676. You got 638. Dave and Gav also got slightly more. But compared to all of the people around you, you got more captaincy points than most. It's just same again as last season. Just not gambling too much, picking the people. What were your thought processes on that?
Yeah, it's just having really good football knowledge. Number one, not having to, yeah. Again, one of the lessons, I don't know if it was last season or the season before, I tried to sort of take on board was not look and think, oh, that person's playing away from home too much. I used to, really, I still do. I'm a bit of a home whore, as you would say. I do love a home fixture, but someone like a Haaland away at anyone really, or Southampton away at anyone really, it was the safe pick. And I think there was just too much fear away from going away from Haaland too much. And I think the times when I would have gone away from him would have been if like City were playing someone hard away from home, or like Baz says, it would have been a double game week. So yeah, captaincy was all right. The one time I, captained the right player, but where my season went wrong probably was I thought I triple captained Rashford. And that was absolutely where the season, because if I'd have remained pressed on that, I'd have been doing quite well. Probably invested a bit more time into actually thinking about the rest of the season.
It was tricky because compared to the average for the triple captain, so this will sort of hit it home for you. For example, like Gav got plus 51 compared to the average with his triple captain. Heather plus 50. I got plus 45 over the average when I used my triple captain. When you use yours, you got plus 29 points. It was just didn't end up working out too well. For one area that you and Baz and I actually, compared to everybody else, did really well in was the amount of points we got from our goalkeepers this season, which was a really weird statistic. So, Baz, you got 203 points from your goalkeeper. Scott, you got 199. I got 194. Like Geoff got 160. Dave got 143. Gav got 134. And then I actually compared that to the world number one, and the world number one only got 160 points from his goalkeeper. So we picked up like 40 points from just picking the right goalkeeper between all of us. Where it went just a little a bit south for us both was we just didn't have. I mean, yours was midfield points, Scott. You got 877 points from your midfielders for the season. Like the world number one got 1,107, but like Dave Byrne got 998.
Yeah, I know. For me, and so it's two places the season went wrong for me personally was the error of thinking I'd press triple captain and didn't, but also just the okie dokie I did with Martinelli, took him out at the wrong time, brought him in at the wrong time. That was a really big few game weeks. That when Martinelli just was on flames, and just having the right Arsenal player in really affected that, and that's a lot of those would have been the midfield points. So. Yeah, I couldn't seem to get anything right with the midfield.
Yeah, it was, that was noticeable in terms of the points that came in from that side of things. And Baz, you got 954 points from your attackers, and one of the reasons for that, by the way, and then let me give you that some context. So Geoff got 827. You got 954 from attackers. So that a big step up there. And before we just touch a little bit further on that, your formations were 3-4-3, the most used, followed by 4-3-3, and then 3-5-2. Whereas Geoff's was 3-4-3 and then 4-4-2. And then Dave was 3-4-3 and then 3-5-2 and then 4-4-2. Gav's was 3-4-3 and 4-4-2. Heather's 3-4-3, 3-5-2. Mine was 3-5-2 and then 3-4-3 that were basically the same. And Scott's was 3-4-3, 3-5-2. Strikers were the top performing players this season. You were the only manager in the top lot who basically always played through up front. Was that a conscious thing for you?
Yeah, especially how bad the defenders were. No one kept clean sheets, and it was hard to judge who was going to keep a clean sheet. Like final end at last game of the season, we were thinking, right, well, you was adamant Liverpool were going to keep a clean sheet, and I was like, no, they're not. Not last game of the season at Southampton. They're like, oh yeah, they will, easy.
They conceded one goal in the last 4 games. Come on.
Conceded 4 against Southampton.
I want the worst shout in the world. Jeez, I've done worse this season. The captain Sterling, for God's sake.
Yeah, there was that, and you probably was tempted to bring him back in as well, weren't you? So, but yeah, it was very conscious because the attackers were doing really well, and when I think majority of the season I had Haaland and Kane, I couldn't not do it, and then I obviously had a good backup as well. So I didn't really go, right, okay, let's go for like a Sam Greenwood or someone like that. So I thought, right, well, I'm going to have near enough 3 premium strikers, and then my midfield, I'll probably just have like Yates and your 7 millions, and then probably 2, like a Bailey and a Pereira. And defenders wise, I was looking, right, well, I've still got to have your Trippier for starters, because he was like everyone's go-to defender, because he was something like 30 or 40 points clear, being the best defender. So it was obvious that everyone was going to have Trippier, and if you didn't, you might as well just not even bother. So it was definitely a conscious effort to have 3 up front majority of the time going forward.
I think we've been joined by our next special guest, if she has arrived, as our leading lady for the Fantasy Premier League. Hello, Heather. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. For everyone who's listening on the podcast, Heather Howcroft has joined us. This season's official #1 Howcroft, and also official #1 lady in our league. And my wife has been on at me for a very long time saying, you never have any women on your podcast. You're terrible. And I was like, well, I've wanted Heather on for ages. And after her incredible finish to the season, coming 5th, I was like, I have to get you on the season ender. So it's a pleasure to have you. FPL experience, Heather. Is this your 2nd season? Is it?
No, I've not really done it before. I joined sort of a few weeks before the end of last season just to kind of get the grips. But first time, learning the ropes along the way. But yeah, I've loved it. It's been great.
How's it been in the Howcroft household with you and Jack towards the end of the season?
It's been really fun, actually, because we're both obviously very competitive. So it's been quite fun. But it's been all jokes aside, it's been a really good sounding board, and I've tried not to take too much off of him because I wanted to do it myself. But it's good to sort of throw ideas around and just see what he thinks of things. So it's been good. It's been fun.
He's a pretty accomplished manager, to be fair, your husband. When I was looking at the FPL game week leaderboard for the last few years, over the last 5 seasons, there's Geoff, Gav, me, and Jack, top 4 managers, with Martin behind us and Scott there in 6th over that period of time. And even when I went back as far as, was it 8 seasons, maybe something like that? Yeah, I mean, again, we're all towards the top over a very long period of time. So as much as we rip Jack a little bit, it's because he's damn good at being an FPL manager. He's been very consistent for a very long period of time. One question I wanted to ask you, and I didn't actually text you this question, by the way, so I'm sorry about this already. Do you find it as stressful as the 3 lads that are on the screen during the week, when you're watching the Premier League, or do you just genuinely really enjoy it?
No, I really enjoy it. Like, I do get a bit. I found as the season's gone on more, I've got more like stressed out by it on the day of like those points coming in, and I am sat like checking it and refreshing it all the time. But no, during the week I'm all right. I leave it all until the last minute and do it right at the end of the week, like the last point.
That scared the life out of me. That's the Scott Williams tactics. Love it.
Yeah.
It's a good strategy though. It's because, like, say for example, Europe's on, and then obviously you've done your transfers and someone gets injured in Europe. You're like, oh no, knackered. So yeah, it's good, but I wouldn't do it like literally straight to kick off. I think that would, I'd be too scared to do that. I'd probably be doing it like Friday night or something like that.
I've been close a few times to missing out, but like you say, like stuff can happen last minute, can't it? So it does sort of catch that a bit.
What was the moment of the season that really propelled you up the leagues? Because you were 1 million in the world at game week 22, and then you managed to get yourself all the way up to 185,000, and that's out of like 11.5 million managers. Oh well, 11.4 million managers. Was that the moment, or was there one a little bit later on that what was the moment of the season where you were like, I'm doing well?
I feel like it was because I had my chips left. I think that was what made the big difference. Like, and I don't feel like I necessarily planned that. I don't know. I was half sort of, I'm a worrier, so I felt like I needed to save them for something when I really needed them. But yeah, I think it was those. Because I think, like you say, I was sat quite low down, and then it was at a certain point, maybe like March or like February, where it just sort of started to move up a bit. But yeah, it's definitely the chips, using them late and using them on the double game weeks.
You used your chips at I think a different time to every single manager, like in our top part of our league. So pretty much everyone used their wild cards game week 8 or 9, and then 26 or 28. And you went 13 and 27. And then the bench boost chip again was used. I can't remember what week it was. It might have been 29. You might have used that one at the same time. But then the triple captain, you used it later in 34 instead of on Rashford in 22. And then you saved your free hit until game week 37. And they all went pretty well for you. So I said, was it a strategy? Was it a plan? But I'm interested to hear that you've left them late because you were kind of like worrying.
Yeah, and I think maybe the first few were like that. I genuinely was like still learning it, so I probably kind of forgotten that I needed to use them, so just tried to use them. But towards the next bit, I don't know, it was like the weeks where most people were looking to use them, I'd actually come to my team and I'd be like, I don't really need to do an awful lot, like it's okay as it is. I'll save it for like when I really need it. I was just saving them a lot, or just I was lucky that a few of the weeks when that happened, it was okay, and I could get around it by just using the free transfer.
What were your biggest lessons that you've learned this season to then take into next?
I think probably just like using my gut on things and not always going with what you feel like you should do. Like, Jack would sort of say what he was going to be doing, and my natural thing would be like, oh, he'll be right, I'll just do that. But then we've watched a lot of football this year, and I'd watch it for myself and like think, oh no, actually they look good, I think they're going to do something. Or like the eye test, as you guys always talk about on here.
Yeah, it's Scott's favourite thing. The eye test is I completely agree with Scott though on that.
I think it works.
Yeah, I think I need glasses though this year.
Yeah, but you're right though, because it's not always about the statistics. It is about almost trying to find that next player that's going to do well and trust your gut that they're going to do it by watching them. Like, oh, they look like a good player, I need to get them in. What was your biggest mistake of the season?
I think probably in the beginning it was like not planning very well and just doing it week by week, and then sometimes you'd get stuck with players who don't work for the next one when you could have swapped them out for someone else. But I don't know, I don't know. I think sometimes maybe just going with Haaland, and sometimes actually it would have been good to maybe, like I've said, go with my gut. And I was thinking, should I use someone else? But I didn't. I went safe and went with Haaland. I think most people probably did. And then I think when I used my free hit, I put a few people in that didn't end up doing very well. So I could have got a bit higher in the end.
It's interesting you say about Haaland captain, because your captaincy success rate was, I think, the best in the league. And I didn't check everybody's team, but I checked everyone in the top sort of like 15. And then at that point, I was like, well, I'd hope yours is probably better than someone who's 16th, really. So if there's someone lower, please call me out. But you were 30% success rate on your captains, which was better than Baz by 1, better than Geoff by 2. It was the same success rate as David Byrne, but you got 748 points from your captain, whereas he got 688. Baz, you only got 676. To put this into context, your captains only got 10 points less than the guy that won FPL's captains.
Wow.
He got 758 points from his captains. You got 748. So it's amazing. Interesting you say that about should I have captain Hammer didn't, because you couple of your only blanks. So Saka in game week 26 that pretty much everyone captained in a double game week, he blanked. But the only other times you got blanks was when you captained Haaland or Kane, probably when you should have done, and they blanked.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're talking about the times that they blanked and you didn't captain them, someone else when you captained them, you'd have had some sort of like ridiculous, like Rain Man style captaincy number that would have been insane. I mean, it's so good. But did you have a secret to that? Did you keep it simple? Like, was there anything? Give me some advice, because my captains were terrible.
I don't know. Again, I think it was just like we watched a lot. It was based off that. I think I put Wilson in the end when like a lot of people did Isaac, and that was purely
Amazing
because
move.
we watched a game and I just thought he looked amazing. So that paid off really well. And I think that was one of my chips weeks as well. So that was really good. And I think people like Martinelli, I maybe captained a few times when others didn't. Yeah, just definitely got like just doing it off of what I saw, I suppose. Trying to be a bit more simple with it.
I'll do the last couple of questions before I hand over to, I don't know if Baz has got a couple. I know Baz wanted to talk to you about it as well. Couple of quick fire ones. Favourite player of the season in your FPL team, this is. Favourite player?
So obvious would be Haaland, but Trippier seemed to be in my team majority of the year, every week. It was just great. I thought it was like consistency the whole way through until the end. So really him.
Like that. He was in the top 20 players. He was the only defender in the top 20 players for the whole season in terms of points. He was the only defender that made it in top 20 players. He was also he was also in the top 20 players for the first half and the second half of the season. So he had a really bad run for a few games, but the rest of the time, yeah, completely agree, totally consistent. The biggest troll or your least favourite player of the season?
I think this will be unpopular, but Trent for me. Like, everyone raves about Trent, and every time I got him in, he just didn't really do anything for me. And then when I get him out, he'd do really well. So it just didn't work for me. But he was very annoying.
He was in the first half of the season like nowhere near, and then in the second half of the season he was the top scoring defender, but it wasn't by a long way. It's the first time he's not been in the top 20 players, I think, in like 6 seasons. He's had a bad season by his standards. Final question for me. So in terms of points hits that we took, Geoff took 28, Dave Byrne 32, Gav 52. Gav loves a hit. He's like Cully. Takes so many hits, these guys. I took 40. Scott took 36. Len, who we just had on, took 80. Love that. The world number 1 took 36 points in hits. You only took 16. The only person who took less hits than you, who was obviously like a really engaged manager, was the man who sat on the screen, who you've taken your crown off, Baz. But you only took 12 points in hits. So was that a conscious decision? Was that because you're a cautious manager? Or did you just come across your team and go, I don't need it?
Yeah, I think it was like a bit of both. I'm a warrior in everything. So I was like, I don't want to do that because I might mess up and then I'll just plummet. But yeah, I think it was. I'd come to looking at the team and I sort of just didn't really feel like I needed to. Like I could get by just having like the free transfers. So yeah, I think I was just lucky in that sense.
Is Gracie Lee going to let you ask a few questions, Bal?
No, I don't think she will. I think you've asked quite a lot of them. Mine was just kind of a bit of a sarcastic one, saying that we all know that you wear the trousers anyway in the Howcroft household. So it was one of them just saying, well, you've got the bragging rights now on FPL, so how does that make you feel?
excellent. I've been waiting for this moment, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to giving Jack all the tips next year and trying to help him out to do a bit better.
It was your first proper season playing it, and you beat him once, so it's 100% record for you.
He's convinced it's a fluke, though. He's already said to me, "Just prepare, though. It won't happen like this next year." I'm like, okay.
I love that.
Just tell him to get Penny on and get back in kitchen.
Controversial statement from Baz. Like, Scott, did you have anything you wanted to ask Heather whilst you've
No,
got around?
again, just delighted that you beat Jack. There's nothing like I like more than seeing pain on his face. So yeah, I get to see that most Thursdays, and when he's give him a bit of a ripping. So yeah, I really encourage all spouses to try and beat their other halves. There's nothing better, quite frankly. And I think, to be honest, my mum's probably going to beat me next year. So yeah, happy days.
Proper dedication from Judith. Well, it's she was doing really well. She was flying quite high actually as the leading female. But you surpassed Nicola Tomlinson and everything else, and you managed to be our best performing lady, coming 5th in the league. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Heather. I really proud. You've got to get to netball now, haven't you?
Yeah.
Well,
no worries.
Enjoy, and thank you so much for coming on. It's been great.
No problem.
Perfect. See you soon.
Yeah, bye.
Elbows out.
Is Geoff, are you there, mate? Because you've got just for like podcast listeners, Geoff's been sort of tuned in, listening, but not listening, but being a dad at the same time, and he's sat there with his camera off, and he's here.
I'm back.
He's here.
Back.
Yeah.
I
enjoyed that one from Heather.
Oh, good. Any message for your best man, Jack?
Oh, mate, what's going on there? Come on, you got to sort that next season.
Now, I'm really glad Scott's between you two on the screen, because the battle was on coming down to the last day of the season. Can I run through a few stats, Geoff? Is
it going to hurt?
Well, there's a couple that.
Oh no!
There's a couple that are really going to hurt. But there's also a couple that's really funny. So in terms of captaincy points, we touched on this already. You got 604 to Baz's 676. So that was a big difference. You got 28 points in hits. You had a more successful week with the triple captain than Baz, and a more successful week with the bench boost. So you were 20 points more. So Baz was 40 points above average when he got the triple captainship. You were 61 with the bench boost. He was 37 above average. You were 57. So you made up that gap and difference in terms of your chip usage, which I'll ask you about in a minute. Baz, you had 197 points on your bench. Geoff, you had 297 points on your bench. Baz, in terms of auto sub points, you had 60. Come on. Geoff, do you want to know how many auto sub points you had come on out of 297?
I know every time I need someone, it's 1 point every single time. But then when there's a nice player on the bench, just someone turns up for a 5-minute run out, it's like, come on. But so I guess maybe 10. I don't know.
Exactly 10.
Yeah, I was the worst last season as well. I did not get points off the bench, so. Yeah, you
were literally. I mean, I was the only person who had more points on the bench than you. In fact, I think Dave Byrne did as well. Yeah, just Dave Byrne. I had 324, and I only had 17. Come on, which was pretty bad. But that was one of the areas where you almost like your players almost played too much and got like 1 point when they needed to. How did it feel? You actually had a really good run towards the end of the season. You did really well from your second wildcard game week 30 to game week 26 to game week 34. You went from 352k to 56k. So big few weeks. Was that the turning point of the season? Talk us through your.
Yeah, I basically have the same season every season. Start well, bad middle block, finish well every single time. I don't know what it is. Even with I thought all the World Cup this year, I'll be better in that period. I just sort of stagnant, just treading water for about, I don't know, the middle third. The week before the World Cup as well, I was, I think I was last in the world. So I had to look at that for 2 months or whatever it was. It was horrendous.
That week, I've never ever seen any you in particular. I've never, because it was the first time it's ever been over 10 million managers, I think, this season. I've never seen anyone have a game week rank of over 10 million. Like game week 16 was 10.5 million in the world out of 11.4.
The worst thing is, I was really pleased with the team that week. I was looking at it, I was like, Rashford against Fulham, I had Salah, they just did nothing. They just didn't turn up. And I was like, what's going on? And I was thinking, I'll go into this with, I mean, yeah, it looks bad there, but Mitrovic didn't play. And he got injured right at the last minute. So it just, and I benched Trippier. So it's just horrendous.
Your 2 players get you 0 points each, and your Trippier was on your bench for 7. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Perisic against Leeds. Leeds turned up that day.
So your first wild card was a disaster. So you went from 38k in the world down to 579k. Any lessons learned from that period? Because it was just a really bad 8 to 16 for you, and you're an incredibly accomplished manager. So what went wrong in that 8 weeks?
I think I just did it was just 50-50s like all season. So I think I had an option: De Bruyne and Isaac, or Kane and Foden. So just literally, if I'd done those 2 moves separately, I think it would have been something silly like 100 points. It was ridiculous how big it was, and just I got quite a few things wrong as well. I'd like people like Bailey, just a terrible decision when everyone else had Pereira. So just a few little things really went badly wrong.
And I suppose I know we've sort of touched on it already, but what then went so right for you? Because since the World Cup, so you came back at 579k, and you had 3 green arrows, 19, 20, 21. But after that, you only had 4 green arrows for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it was just sheer volume. I think I just had sheer volume of fixtures, to be honest. So I was just planned it. I was just didn't really get many injuries either. So I was like, every double, I basically had the maximum number of doublers. So I had triple Brighton, triple Newcastle. I just, literally loaded up. I actually felt I was getting really frustrated because I was just getting the captaincy wrong repeatedly. And I was just like, I'd be doing so well if I was getting this captaincy right. And then there was the Isaac versus Wilson. I had the money for Wilson. I went Isaac, and I saw Baz. Congratulations, Baz, by the way. I haven't said it yet. But it was just agony. That was agony. Lee was just about to get subbed off, and then he scores the penalty against Leeds, and then he scores two late goals against Brighton, or goal and assist. So just that, and then the Kane on the final day. It's just the captaincy was bad, but everything else was really good. Bruno as well. He was a little bit frustrating, but he came good at the end. So not many people had him.
He was good differential for you, actually. He did end up doing really well. He was the 4th highest scoring midfielder for the second half of the season, Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah.
He seemed to do really well. Barry, any questions that you have for Geoff? A bit of interaction? Anything that you want to say to him?
To be honest, he gave me a really good run-in, to be fair. I touched upon it earlier. I made 2 shocking transfers in the final game week, and I was looking at my team, and I'm like, I think I had 1 differential and you had 6 differentials to me. And I'm like, I had 1 player that I was praying on to score, and you had 6. And I was like, please none of them 6 score or assist or something like that. And I was thinking, oh yeah, Kane's absolute smashing it. And then I think Alex nearly jinxed me on the group chat that we've got, saying, oh yeah, your captain's won it this time. And then Salah gets an assist, Trent gets an assist, and I'm like, oh my God, you best not jinx me like that. So was it a thought process of having that many differentials to people around you, or was it just luck or conscious?
Just how it worked out, really. I was just sort of, just making transfers each week, just looking at the doubles, really. I wasn't even looking, I didn't even think I had a chance of winning it until, I don't know, maybe, but to be honest, probably not even until 2 or 3 weeks from the end. I wasn't anywhere near it, and I just kept on getting it. And then I think I got there. But I didn't actually look at your team, really, until the deadline had been. And then I looked what you had, and I looked who was starting, and I thought, oh, this is looking good. And then I was watching the Leeds match, and it was just horrendous. My team conceding after a minute it was pathetic, and it was horrible. And every chance that Kane had, he scored. It was what it was. So, but I didn't try and have the differentials. It just sort of worked out that way.
Yeah, to be fair, I had a dilemma that I had for, I think it was when Wilson actually bagged quite a few and did really well for me, because I was thinking Salah's going to really hurt me if I don't get him in. And I was tempted to obviously do 3 transfers to get Salah in, but then I decided against it because I was thinking, well, Wilson's playing really well and he's scoring, but the only chance is his potential rotation risk. But I thought, stuff it. I think I was 3rd or 4th at the time, and I thought, got to get him in. And so that, I mean, by not having Salah made my captain pick a lot easier, because I think I probably would have picked Salah as my captain, and then obviously you'd have been crowned champion. So it kind of worked out quite happy that I didn't have Salah, to be honest.
Yeah, good move in the end, Tam.
Yeah.
The Isak thing was interesting, Geoff. I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off then. I cut you off. Because that was a really painful week. That was a week that basically propelled Baz to win the league.
Yeah.
I was chatting to Gavin Webb about it because I've been with him the last couple of days on the course I've been on, and we both said the same thing because we both played FPL for such a long period of time. We went for the guy that we should always go for in like game week 25, 26, not game week 34, 35, because we thought he'll get minutes. He's more consistent. He's going to start every week. He's still delivering well. He's this, that, and the other. He's the safer pick. He's this, that, and the other. And actually, like, when Dave Byrne was as far clear as he was, about 30 points clear top at the time, the move was always Wilson. Like, really, I know it's very easy in hindsight. I know that's a very easy in hindsight statement. But for chasers, it was always Wilson. Like, really, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. That was a big, big mistake. And honestly, I was really torn. I was messaging Jack. I was saying, and I said to him, because he had Isaac already. I said, if you were starting fresh, who would you pick? And he said Wilson. I'd still went with Isaac. I just looked and I saw Wilson's got injured for me before, and I think he only started like 2 of the last 6. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go Isaac. And then
Wilson's hurt us in the past before. He's been got injured so quick. Like it was such an old school bias that I had, and I realised that after when I clicked select and I did the team, and I went, "You've gone Isak because you've bottled it. Like you've gone because of what your past experiences, and you shouldn't have done that." But I mean, it didn't matter to me anyway. I'm miles behind, but for someone in your position, it's like it must be a bit of that's an annoyance.
Yeah.
Any other lessons learned before I go on to your favourite player, your least favourite player of the season?
I think I need to try and get the captaincy better. And I think Heather was saying then a minute ago that she doesn't let it stress her out, where I do. I need to try and relax a little bit. So say Man United 7-0 win, I couldn't enjoy a minute of that. I took Salah out that week, and I just couldn't. When Liverpool beat Man United 7-0, I couldn't enjoy the game at all. And Haaland as well, when Man City smashed Man U, I couldn't enjoy the game because I didn't have his captain. So that was really stressing me out. So I need to try and relax a little bit with it. But I enjoy it. Yeah, it was good. So.
To be fair, I made it more simple. So my captaincy picks from game week 1 to 16, I had a 50% success rate, and to put that into context, like you guys are getting 28 out of 37 right. My first half of the season captaincies were an absolute abomination, whereas my second half of the season captaincy, I was 86%. I only had 3 blanks, 2 Haalands, and 1 for Saka in game week 26, and 2 of those blanks were still green arrows, because everyone else captained Haaland those weeks, basically. I mean, one was the Saka one, everyone captained Saka, everyone captained Haaland. But I just simplified it massively. I just went, let's not overthink it. I was trying to force it at the beginning of the season way too much.
You were sleep deprived. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Bloody Roman.
2 of them.
Yeah, 2 of them. 2 of them at me. But yeah, well, I was trying to force it. I was trying to catch up, and it killed me. So it's interesting again to see that. Favourite player of the season, then your least favourite player of the season?
Probably favourite one's a bit of a nasty one. Tyrone Mings. He saved me. He was bailing me out of bad captaincy decisions. And he scored like 2 goals, maybe got an assist for me as well, which is just ridiculous. So
I hated that because I transferred him out on my wild card, and I brought in Matty Cash, who got injured 2 weeks later. And I had Mings before, and Mings just kept banging. I was like, oh God, and also I hate him anyway. So it's just it's awful. Biggest troll?
Probably someone like Mitrovic, who did really well apart from when I had him, and then he was injured. Maddison as well. Like I think Scott said it. You're watching him play, and it's not his fault, but he's not getting any points because people are just missing from a yard out, and he's just playing so well. And you keep him because you think, oh yeah, he's got points coming. You keep him for 5 weeks, and he still has no points because the team's so bad around him. So yeah, probably Maddison.
He was the 8th highest scoring midfielder in the first half of the season, Maddison. In the second half, he just had nothing. Like so bad. Any bits of advice? You've done incredibly well. I'll put this up for you. I don't know if you saw it when Heather was on, but I did the last eight seasons. because I think if I go to be fair, 9 probably works in a way as well. Oh, you don't. I think you've done 8 seasons on here. That's why I had it on there. So the last 8 seasons for everyone who's in the podcast league who's played for that long, Geoff's average rank has been 47,000th in the world over the last 8 years, which is an unbelievable return. Gavin Webb's 56, then I'm 56, 58, and then I'm a lowly 166. But you guys you two are quite clearly the 2 managers in the league who have done the best for the longest period of time. So I'm all ears for advice.
Yeah. I think I'm obsessed with fixtures. That's what I always look at. So I just try and always make sure that I have, doubles is really important at the end, but also just good fixture runs. So, just making sure that the team's lined up so that I don't have a horrendous week, like a 22-point week. It's just trying to make sure all through the season, it's just runs of fixtures. And I think, just trying to be nice and steady, really, and not take too many points hits where I can. Captaincy wasn't good this year, but usually I think I'm all right at that as well. But was just got every sort of 50-50 wrong this one, unfortunately.
Anything for Geoff, Scott?
No, just Geoff just knows fantasy football, and I'd just like to point out that Geoff's won our draft. If anyone plays fantasy football draft, he won that by just the small margin of 100 points. Fair play. So the guy knows football, but he also knows how to plan fantasy football. Well, all 3 of you do. I'm certainly the casual amongst us here, but some really good bits of advice there. I like the bits you said about making sure the doubles are good and getting the right players in. But always there, Geoff. So fair play to you, mate.
You had me sweating, Scotty, in the fan. I know you probably don't think it, but I was working hard on those transfers each week.
Some big weeks. Do you know what? Wilson was clawing me back in draft.
He was. I was getting back. I was thinking back to his failing here. So, but Kane was good for me in that. So
yeah.
And just so we're all aware, I was 3rd. I was nowhere near either of you.
Yeah, he was 100 points. I was 100 points ahead of you, 100 points behind Geoff. So the last week of the season, I didn't even bother looking at my team. I was like, there's no point.
I'm glad you didn't, because it let me have a couple more transfers. I managed to just hold off Martin to get 3rd place to cash in that one. So that was good news, and still cashed in my work league. So I'm very, very happy. Thanks for joining us, Geoff. Any further questions for you, Baz? By the way, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
No, you asked me of a question anyway, so yeah.
Sorry.
So I know it's fine.
Honestly, I've got so much. Did you see how much prep I did for this, Geoff? By the way, I mean for podcasters you won't see this, but it's like the X-Files. Like I've done the amount of detail I went into for this one. So yeah, but thanks for joining us, Geoff. Congratulations on winning draft, coming 2nd, and just being an all-round top guy. So congratulations, mate.
Cheers, boys. And congratulations, Baz, again.
Thank you very much. Cheers for having us.
So let's now move on to the bit more player stuff. So we'll start off with the first half of the season and have a little reflection on that. So the first half of the season was game week 16, wasn't it? I'm going to do this. There you go. To game week 16. So the top performing players, let's do the top 20 on here because it's better that way. So Erling Haaland obviously top in the first 16 game weeks, 13 appearances, 1 as a sub. He managed to get 18 goals in that period of time and 3 assists, which was just absolutely insane with 123 points. The only other player that got over 100 points was Harry Kane with 102. Then we had Trippier and Almiron. 969. Almiron was the top scoring midfielder in the first 16 game weeks of the season. And it's funny, Scott, and I listened to the pre-season podcast we did back to listen to a couple of our predictions. One of my favourite predictions that I made for the season was that KDB was going to score more fantasy points than Haaland. Great prediction, Al. But the Almiron, his pre-season performance was pretty fantastic. And that was something I'd forgotten actually about. And he didn't have the best start to the season, but then he managed to score 8 goals and get 2 assists quite late on. Did either of you guys jump on him straight away? I think I missed the Almiron train. How was it for you guys? Because that was a weird period of the season, wasn't it? Where everyone was like, "Oh my god, this guy scoring loads of goals."
I think I jumped on him when he hit form. I think that was one of the right decisions I did. I jumped on him in the draft mode as well. It was just looking really good. Some of the goals he was scoring as well, and his overall play. I think he had a really good season. Obviously, he was flamed at the start of the season, had a bit of a lull, but I think he's been really good player to watch as well. I think he's really matured this year. I think those Grealish words, as much as it was, bit of banter, but whatever, they were probably ringing in his ears at the start of the season and gave him a bit of a kick up the arse. So yeah, I think he was one that I jumped on fairly quickly.
How about you, Baz?
I was a bit late to the party on that one, I think. Fashionably late. I was thinking, I don't really want to be stung by him. I don't want to get him in and then he loses his form and then I've got to do another transfer to plan. And then I just thought, I actually need to get him because he's going to hurt me. And obviously I got him. And then I think he only had about 2 or 3 weeks of him performing. And then obviously I thought I'll get him in after the World Cup as well, thinking, and then I think he got injured pretty early on as well. And then obviously I got a few other injuries from a wild card as well. And I was like, oh, bloody hell. And that kind of threw all my pre-planning stuff for a good couple of weeks. But yeah, it was one of them where if you didn't have him, he was gonna hurt you, and obviously I had to get on him. But obviously got him on a bit later than I should have done.
I'll make you laugh, guys. I didn't jump on him quickly at all.
I didn't think it because we were talking about it and we were going, oh yeah, Almiron, we don't know about that. We've been stung in past where we don't jump on bandwagon and stuff like this.
Game week 20, I went for him. I jumped on Anthony Gordon quite early.
That's brilliant. I love that. But you got him quickly in draft, though, didn't you?
I did in draft. I did in draft, yeah.
The other top performing midfielders were Kevin De Bruyne and then Mo Salah, again, still with 82 points. So De Bruyne had 90 and Salah had 82, and everyone was talking about how much of it just wasn't the price. There wasn't value points per million, was he? That was the point. When you look at someone like Trossard before his move as well, he was on 80 points that was when he was at Brighton. He outscored, which surprised me actually when I looked at the stats. He outscored Ødegaard, Martinelli, and then also Rodrigo, Maddison, who are all still on 77 points. Remember, Rodrigo starts the Leeds' fixtures start the season were really good, and Rodrigo was on flames at the start of the season, wasn't he?
Hey, I had him in draft. Go back to draft. I had him in from week 1 in draft.
It turned out to be a great selection because obviously Bamford was injured, wasn't he? Maddison doing Maddison things. It was did really well. Saka, and then it was Foden, and then we were stuck with the Arsenal defence of Saliba and Gabriel, Cancelo, Pope, Firmino, which was a surprise, but he probably got a hat-trick at some point, didn't he? And Gabriel Jesus. Were there any massive surprises in there for you other than Almiron? Anyone in here that, potentially Rodrigo? Anyone here that you thought at the beginning of the season they don't stand an absolute chance in anything of doing anything, and then they really surprised you? Again, other than Almiron and Rodrigo.
Saliba defence. I didn't think Arsenal's defence would have been that good, but obviously I didn't think Arsenal would be that good in general, to be honest. I'm quite shocked there was only one Brighton player on there, though.
Yeah.
Because obviously Trossard was at Brighton at that point. Because obviously how good they was, like March and Matoma and Estupiñán as well. So yeah, I was quite shocked that there's not a lot of Brighton players on that. They must have obviously done really well after the World Cup, and that's when De Zerbi put his mark on the team and made him more attacking.
Mm-hmm. They certainly did. Scott, anyone for you?
Trossard. Trossard is not one I would have been looking too heavily at the start of the season. I think it's quite easy to forget how a club was doing a year ago. Brighton, let's not forget, a year ago, were very good to watch, but they didn't score many goals and they didn't win that many games. So yeah, I wouldn't have been particularly looking at Brighton players in the slightest, because they were teams that we banged on about it last year a lot on the pod. They just couldn't score. So it's been a complete sort of 180 this year, and that's all down to De Zerbi, really. Potter's obviously laid a bit of groundwork there, but fair play to what De Zerbi's done. You know what I like most about what he's done? He's come in and he said straight away, didn't he? He said, I'm not going to rip it up. This team's doing brilliantly. Why would I change it? and he's just put his own little stance on there. You know, they've rode the storm of losing Trossard, and you know he's been bringing the best out of some of these young players they've got as well.
Mhm.
The boy who scored that absolute worldie
And
against City.
Ciso.
Yeah,
Ciso.
what he's a player. So yeah, Trossard would not have been one though on that list. He's definitely a big surprise. Someone like Tony, I think we all knew. I always backed Tony to just do the business again. He's a goal scorer. I always, you can always bet on him, can't you?
But with that though, Trossard has been the most constant player for Brighton, so I always knew he was going to be in there because I always pick Trossard in draft because I know he's going to perform. And then obviously I got rid of him when he went to Arsenal, and then I think Alex jumped on him after that. Yeah. But yeah, I'm shocked you said Trossard on that one. To be
honest, I think if you gun to my head, I don't know why there's a gun to my head. But,
didn't realize there was.
We've had a lovely podcast up until now.
if you had to say like a Brighton player, I'd have probably said him, maybe a Pascal Gross, because I know he used to take pens at the start of the season, but they couldn't score last season. So I wouldn't have been like, frothing at the mouth to get any attacking player in. I'd have been more likely to maybe look at a Dunk or a Webster or, I don't know, someone along those lines rather than an attacking one. But I agree. If you said I'd get an attacking Brighton asset, I would have gone for him, but I wouldn't have loved it at the time.
I totally agree with this, to be honest. I wouldn't have had a Brighton asset in the top 20 players to start the season. Like, in terms of point scoring, really. I just wouldn't have had it down. But yeah, obviously they've performed really, really well and did amazingly well. And just one thing I will point out again is that we had this conversation about Phil Foden last season, and the first half of the season, his points per 90 that he played was the third best in the league. It was better than Kevin De Bruyne's. And it's just, I think
Kane's.
Yeah, better than Kane's. The Foden thing he baffles me every year now, because I thought his coming of age season was last season. I thought this season he'd push on. We'll talk about football next podcast, but from an FPL perspective, he's just still not really an option. I know he had a small period of time when he played a lot, around that sort of maybe game week 7, 8, 9, 10 mark. But other than that, he's just like the rest of the season, he's just not been anywhere near, has he?
It's the pep roulette that kills him.
Yeah, but it's like
Grealish plays every week. Like, this is what I don't understand. Like, he's so good, he just doesn't seem to. He just never has a full season at it. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know what you think. I don't know what you think of that one, Scott.
I agree. It is a weird one. It's like he's not even getting 30 minutes when he comes on as subs. He seems to be coming on super late on in games as well. So yeah, I agree. For the Nationals, you've kind of got to think, is it an attitude thing behind closed doors? Is there something going on there? Because he's back Grealish, and I agree about it. It's pet roulette, but. People like Mahrez and Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, they're the ones that have been rotated, kind of like that. He's just not got a sniff in the slightest.
It might not fancy him as a winger. It might fancy him to replace De Bruyne in attacking midfielder, but that's the only way I can think about it.
Yeah, it's
why he doesn't play as much.
Second half of the season, we had the man, the myth, the person who, it's one of the reasons I did really well in the second half of the season. We always spoke about this on the podcast, is I had all three. In fact, I had all of the top 4 players in my team pretty much the whole time. And it was the Kane, Salah, Haaland, and Rashford. So Kane was 161 points, Salah 157, Haaland 149. So everyone, he's had an unbelievable season. Second half of the season, he still scored 18 goals in 22 games. But the first half, he got 18, was it 17? I can't remember what I just said. But in obviously less games, because there's more games in this half of the season. But Kane scored the same amount of goals as Haaland, and they got the same amount of assists. So, and everyone talks about Haaland being this beast. He's unbelievable. Harry Kane's had an unreal season, hasn't he? Top point scorer second half. And loads of people transferred him out. I think, did we all keep him for the rest of the season?
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, obviously you won the league. I was top of the second chance league, and Scott, you played the game, and you didn't know, but you did all right at certain times. But it was the right decision to keep him. And I still, for me, for the life of me, I still can't understand how Olympic. And Salah as well. He got 9 assists and 13 goals. His assist level was really strong in the second half of the season, 157 points. Rashford, the obvious, again, 13 goals, 5 assists. Martin Odegaard had an incredible second half of the season, didn't he? He outscored Saka and Martinelli. Saka got 126, Martinelli got 121, Odegaard got 135, which he's never really been a fantasy asset before this season, Odegaard. Whereas
he's been one of them players that's rather pass than shoot. But then he started shooting more, and as the numbers don't lie, he scored 9 goals. So
definitely.
Apart from this week, when I took a -4 to get him in.
Yeah, well, not so bad. I've got him in.
Well, it's all right, man. We can talk about this week for you forever still. Don't worry about that.
Well, yeah.
Watkins had an amazing run. Got his 13 goals as well, 5 assists. Bruno Fernandes.
A differential of the season.
Yeah.
I should if I got him in when I said get him in. God, I'd have won the league by God knows how many. But yeah, I was thinking, oh, yeah, he's going to stop. He's going to stop. No, he's keep on going. Okay.
You'd have won the league that really mattered, which was the Second Chance League, that's for sure. Bruno Fernandes, Saka. Bruno Fernandes had a great second half of the season. He got 6 goals, 7 assists. Saka, Martinelli. Trent was the top scoring defender in the second half of the season. 23 appearances. He only got 1 goal, but he got 10 assists in the second half of the season, and Liverpool sorted their defence out. So next season, he's going to be really interesting. I can't see him being priced as high as 7.5 again. Really, I think it might be a 7 mil. I say I can't see it. I can see it because I know what FPL are like, but I think it might be 7 or 7, probably 7 mil, and he'll still be a defender, but he's going to play
Haaland
midfield.
will be about 14.
Yeah, Haaland should be 14. I'd have thought Kane will be 13, something along those lines. Salah, you might get a tiny price drop, 12 and a half.
12 and a half, yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how we can fit as many of those players in as possible, because it's going to depend on the fixtures, isn't it? But yeah, I think Trent's going to be a great asset next season because Liverpool can't be as bad as they were. I mean, actually, to be fair, the second half of the season they didn't actually do that bad. I mean, they weren't great, but whatever. But he was the best asset defensively. Anyone surprised by that, by the way?
Yeah,
because Heather definitely was. Are you surprised by that, Scott? Are you surprised by the fact that he's right up there? I know it might be slightly more of a footballing perspective, but did you ever consider getting Trent in your team?
Trent, no, because Liverpool can't keep clean sheets. Really, it's not. He's such a good asset, and I think if he has a good pre-season, he could be absolutely banging. Especially if he's a defender, but playing in that new little position. That's a lot of points up for grabs. But yeah, I think one of the big things this season, and Baz touched upon it, and I probably didn't sort of view it as much. No one was keeping a lot of clean sheets, not even Man City, not your Liverpools. Man United, you wouldn't even thought that De Gea would have won the Golden Glove, but they were keeping a lot of the clean sheets. But yeah, certainly one to look out for, especially if he's keeping a lookout, for all the Kinos out there. Let's see what position he's going to be playing in pre-season as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it'll be something we'll be reporting on definitely next year. See where he's playing. Matoma was the Brighton player that was the top performer. I know we had a lot of conversations about which one's the best midfielder going to be out of March, Matoma, McAllister. It was Matoma with 115 points. David De Gea got most of his clean sheets second half of the season. 111 top performing goalkeeper with David Raya. Brian Mbeumo got 105 points in the second half of the season. He scored 6 goals and got 8 assists. I didn't know that happened. I missed that. When did that happen, Scott?
He got a couple, didn't he? Not the last game, the first game without Tony. I think he scored twice. That was 2 of his goals. He just kept chipping in here and there, wasn't he? It wasn't too, I think Tony would take in headlines though, wasn't he?
Of course, well, yeah, for all the obvious reasons. The next player down again, totally missed it. Douglas Luiz.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
5 goals and 5 assists.
I mean, that shouldn't be a weird one for me because he's got quite a few inform cards on FIFA. So yeah, I think he's scored a couple of rockets, hasn't he? And got the bonuses.
Would you thought?
I think as well when he was the transformation when he was under Gerrard was more defensive, but then he was getting more in the box when under Unai Emery. So I think the transformation on that is is because of he was getting more box and he was scoring corners as well, and getting assists from. Yeah, so it was one of them, and I think it was. I think he got like I think it was them stats there that I think he got six goals and
8
six.
assists.
Yeah,
No,
so,
sorry, 5 goals, 5 assists. Sorry, that was reading Buemo's stats then.
Yeah, but I think he got 6 goals with Unai when he took charge. So, so it was one of them. I think the transformation in him under a player massively increased his output in the FPL way.
Mahrez had his moment, as usual. He always has a patch of the season. If you have him at the right time, it's right. I had him in draft, and he did really well for me for that period of time, as usual. Estupinian and March, as you said, 104, 103 points second half of the season. I'm surprised to see Callum Wilson down as far as he is with 102, especially because he got 20 appearances. 9 were substitutes. He managed to get 12 goals and 3 assists in that period of time. But yeah, he got 102 points. I thought he might be a bit further up this list. I didn't realise that Brian and Buemo had scored, and Douglas Luiz had scored more points than Callum Wilson in the second half of the season. That's just a bit mental, really. Considering he was the equal 3rd top scorer. I mean, he wasn't the 3rd top scorer. He was the 6th top scorer. Haaland and Kane with 18 each. Rashford, Salah and Watkins with 13, then Wilson with 12. Saka, Tony, Martinelli all with 10 each. Eze was another one that was up there. He got 99 points, but he scored 8 goals, and they all came towards the end. So yeah, it's I'm not a few surprises in the second half of the season that fell under the radar, and I'm going to try my best next season to make sure I'm not missing these picks and missing these people, because at the end of the day, you want to be on them whenever you can be. And at the end of the day, so the top performing players for the whole of the season. Pop quiz. How many? Because we already established there's only one defender. So, and it's trips. How many goalkeepers do you think were in the top 20 players at the end of the season, points wise?
1.
2.
4. I asked the question because I was surprised to see these numbers.
De Gea and Raya.
Yeah, De Gea and Raya. Exactly that.
Edison.
That's right.
Allison and Pope.
Oh.
Edison was one of the biggest trolls, isn't he? Honestly, that lad. Because he couldn't keep clean sheets. But David Raya was the top scoring goalkeeper with 166 points. Then it was Allison with 162, De Gea with 161, and Pope with 157. There's 4 players. And what was crazy consistent about the top performing players for the second half and the first half of the season was there was always 10 midfielders and 5 attackers, but they were different players. It's crazy. And over the whole season, again, 10 midfielders and 5 attackers. Top scoring midfielder, Salah, then Ødegaard, Rashford, Saka, Martinelli, KDB, Bruno, Gross, Eze, and Almiron. And then Haaland, Kane, Tony, Watkins, and Wilson. So the lessons that we've learned from that is absolutely nothing, because our top scoring 5 midfielders were Salah, Ødegaard, Rashford, Saka, and Martinelli, followed by KDB and Bruno. I mean, really, top 7? Obvious. I mean, there's nothing there that's surprising, is there? And then striker-wise, Haaland, Kane, Tony, Watkins, Wilson. Anything there nothing again that really shocks you in terms of players? I think, again, when it comes down to picking our Game Week 1 teams for next season, not to jump the gun and lose the whole summer, but it's going to be just about not losing it in the first few weeks rather than trying to win it, because the players that you've got, are just the top ones, the premium ones, they're just so consistent. And I dread to think what price Rashford and the 3 Arsenal odds are going to be next year, because they're not going to be 6.5s anymore, are they? That's for sure. Any final reflections on players, lads? Your biggest heroes, your biggest trolls of the season? I know, Scott, you already said Madison, your biggest troll. So who's your biggest hero? Who was your player of the season? FPL wise,
honestly, FPL wise.
Yeah, FPL wise, yeah.
I don't know. I personally hated every one of them. I don't know. David De Gea. Why not?
Wow. God, that's a dull
No,
one.
do you know why? Because, like you said there, we didn't. I barely touched my keeper. I think only when I wildcarded and free hitted. And I had David De Gea in draft as well, and he was super consistent. He even saved a penalty at the weekend.
Lovely.
So for me personally, De Gea always got me points. So him.
Nice. Baz?
What hero?
Hero on Troll.
I did like the De Gea shout because obviously I had him when he obviously kept them clean sheets and he was really well because I had double Man U defence. But I think I have to go for it. I only had him for a short period of time and he made me win the league, so I'm going for Wilson.
He's definitely your hero. It wouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
It did win you the league. That Isak Wilson flip was if there's one moment of the season where you were in full control of, there was no previous things that affected you doing that moment. You know, it wasn't like an injury or anything like that. You literally had everyone was going to bring a player in for that double game week. You literally tossed a coin and got it right, and with your own with your own pick.
And plus as well, I thought, well, he's going to be a differential because I looked at majority of the teams and quite a few of them still had Isak in anyway. So I thought, well, yeah. I need a differential because all the others I had near enough combined of each. So I needed someone that was going to be actually different to all three of them that I was competing with.
Yeah.
So it was a no-brainer. I was going to go for Wilson all day long. So
Troll?
I think any Brighton player, because I didn't have Brighton players for God knows how long. And they were killing me. I think probably Matoma for me. I never had him all season.
It's that's quite interesting because the player that you didn't have was the biggest troll because he just kept delivering against you every single time. I think it's a really boring pick generally. This, but my hero of the season was probably Salah for me because I just got on him before a load of other people did and had the structure with Kane and Haaland. And that just kept me going. I think I only had like one red arrow from game week 17 to game week 35. Like I just kept climbing the ranks with the players in that were just consistently delivering. I loved them. And God, do you know what? Biggest troll. Really, really difficult because I actually had quite a good. It actually probably was Wilson for me for another reason of like. The fact that I'm so annoyed with myself that I didn't bring him in at the time of when I should do. Other than that, probably Tyrone Mings for me. Because I've said this already on the pod, but the wildcard situation with Cash, and then he just kept delivering and Geoff had him, and I was just, because I had him and then he kept delivering, was just absolutely brutal for me. Yeah. I think I've covered everything, lads. Remind me if I haven't, Baz, because you're normally quite good with stuff like this.
When we hadn't done our changing factor, the turning point for each one of us, we hadn't done that.
Well, I think my turning point is quite obvious. It was the wildcard in game week, the World Cup wildcard game week 17. I was 4.16 million in the world at that point, and I ended up getting up to 300k. So well, just do yours, Baz, shall we? I mean, unless you've got one that you want to put in there, Scott, in terms of where things kind of went the wrong way for you, the right way for you. But Baz, what was your moment then?
Well, I think it's quite obvious which one mine was, to be honest. I think the Wilson transfer was the biggest one for me. But I think what my advice to people, and I'm going off tangent here, my advice was last year, I was a bit like what you was doing, Alex. You're trying to trying to find that differential and try and get them in before they do well, and it just kept you're losing the flips. Mm-hmm. Whereas I was quite lucky. I kept Martinelli because I had other fires to put out, and it did really well for me. So it was more picking consistent players and looking at fixtures and things like that. So I think that's one of the advice I would give is don't panic. Just keep picking your consistent players, and sometimes you do have to go with gut, but it's the outweighing the consistency and gut and who's in form and what fixtures and things like that, and it's getting the balance just right that gets you there. Because if you don't get the balance right, you could be down where Alex was, and then obviously from then after he put his Salah in, after his wild card, game changers. That's what obviously made it, because he was winning them coin flips. But in majority of the time, it's sometimes luck. But you've got to be in that lucky space.
I think one of the other things I'll mention before I come to you, Scott, on Turning Point, and maybe a bit of advice from your side, because I am always intrigued to hear what you've got to say as well on these topics, is that the second half of the season, the planning really kicked in, because it was quite complicated with when the doubles were going to be and when the singles were going to be and when the blanks were going to be, because of the Queen's passing and everything with that, which really threw the amount of doubles out of sync of what we would normally have. So the fact that I'm just bloody love planning, and the FPL side of things is what I've said it before. I enjoy it more than the actual game week happening. I enjoy the planning, the prep, and trying to pick the players and this. That's the bit of the game that I really love. So the fact that I could then plan, prep, and just kept my captaincy really simple, 86% success rate second half of the season, literally being top of the second chance league of the pod league at the second half of the season, it's just like it just kept it simple and all the planning. Scotty, do you have a moment of the season and anything you want to share with us before we?
My personal moment of the season was when when I was manager of the week. So it's only 38 managers of the week, 37 really. So bosh, get in. Unlucky, you crap managers that didn't get any.
You've reminded me to do something there though, because I bloody forgot to mention this to Geoff, and also this. Sorry, carry on though.
No, I was just going to say a couple of bits of advice from me. If you're triple captaining, make sure you press the button. And also, one thing I'm definitely going to do next year, I am going to have one super dead player on my bench, because one of the things I couldn't do towards the end of the season was move, because don't get me wrong, I had cheap players on my bench, but I was locked up too much money. And especially with the 5 subs now, the likelihood is you're gonna have 11 players out your 14 players coming on. Yeah. So I'm just gonna have a dead player next season. And it's funny because we do a set and forget, and one of the things I'm gonna do differently in set and forget next season is not have any dead players.
Yeah, have a really active bench. I totally agree with you on that point, Scott. It's a really good one, Mel made, because Geoff had an active bench, and out of 297 points, he only got 10 come on. And he in 1 week, his bench was 30 points that he benched. 1 week. The only people that had worse weeks than him for that was game week 23 for Len. He benched 32 points. And game week 33 for Richard Kirk, who also benched 32 points. Other than that, Geoff benched 30 points 1 week, and that was the worst week out of all of them.
I'm surprised Martin went on that. He loves benching points.
He had like 420 odds, I think. I went through the list of all the people that had loads of bench points, and I was like, Martin 25, Martin 23, but none of them were beating the 32 for the award for the worst. Manager of the month, I needed to say for May, by the way, well done to Jason Wheel. Had a really good run in. Callum Burnett just 4 points behind him. Then it was Heather who was third, and the pod team was fourth. Funny that, isn't it? A few differentials, Martin there in seventh as well. But the only manager this season, so we had to get 2 managers of the month, was Geoff, who was on. I forgot to mention. So Geoff, hopefully you'll listen back. I forgot to mention. Congratulations, he beat me to it in April by 15 points. And then he also won one earlier on in the season. So yeah, the other managers of the month we had, which I will shout out. Don't forget to Nicola Tomlinson in August. September was the other time Geoff won it. October was Dimple. Well done, Dimple. Sandeep in November, back in the day when he was near the top. Lewis Evans was December. Neil Ladd, look at that. It was a short month, that one, but that was a cracker. You were out there. Cully in January. I might have fallen off some of these managers of the month, by the way. And then we get to you in February, Baz, with the big month. Jack Howcroft with a smashing March. And then, like I say, Geoff Belcher in April. And then in May, it was Jason Wheel. So thanks for reminding me of the manager of the week thing, Scott, because I hadn't done manager of the month. And I know Jason doesn't listen to the podcast, but he would have heard on a grapevine that he didn't get a shout out and he would have been very, very upset. Anything else from you, boys?
Shall we do the total or the differential for
do
seasons?
Yes. Go on then. Do it, Baz. Read out the leagues.
So, differential weekly option. Alex won, but he got 92 points. I got 74 and Scott got 66. Over the season, obviously I picked Watkins, Alex picked Bowen, and Scott picked Gordon. So I got 98 points. Alex got 70, and Scott, with a late comeback from Gordon, and the final day, got 24.
Come on.
So Alex won the weekly, and I won the season one.
Well done, guys. Well, I wanted to wrap up by just saying that well done to the guy that won the whole thing. Callum Wilson is definitely the biggest troll of the season for the gentleman who came second, because he lost by a couple of points. It might only have been 1 point. And until Callum Wilson came on the pitch, he was getting Ethan Pinnock off his bench for 15 points, and he was going to win the league. So the guy in second was going to win FPL until Wilson came on and blanked. Oh, that's a sickener, isn't it?
Oh God, yeah.
But yes, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in this season. Thanks everyone for joining me on the podcast as well, who's come on today and joined Barry and Scott. Hopefully by the time next season comes around, Scott, I've got a new camera. Just again, thanks everyone for engaging. Thanks everyone for taking part in the league. And finally, as well, there he is, beautiful man. Congratulations again to Len Deakin, and huge congratulations to our winner, Barry Stokes. Well done, Baz. Well done. Get that crown on. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for contributing. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms, Pod, Uncle P, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And then to like this YouTube video, share it with your mates, and subscribe to our channel and wherever you get your podcast from. And it's goodbye for now.